Hey guys, I'm going to do a bait review here for you on a brand new bait I just got my hands on, and I am ecstatic about it. This bait is amazing in every way I had hoped it would be. I introduce to you the 7.5 inch, 4 ounce Mattlures Magnum Gill. 3-piece bait, obviously. The tail here is actually quite more realistic than the previous tail. The material, I'm assuming it's plastic, is a more dense material. The cool thing about this tail versus the previous one is, when this tail's kicking, this tail doesn't add any extra action, but what it does do is move more water. When you see this thing just below the surface and you start burning it, you start seeing, that how much water is really moving. This thing moves a lot of water for a bait its size. This thing is so awesome, man. The front hook hanger here rotates. I am personally a fan of rotating hook hangers, so I think that's an A+. One thing he did here that's a little bit different than the hard gills, he took the bulky fins in the way of the hook and kind of smoothed them out here so that there's not so much in the way when you're fighting a big fish here. I'll give you a description of the hardware I'm using on this. I upgraded to an 80-pound Owner Hyperwire split ring. In the front here, this is a size 1 ST56 by Owner hooks, and then a size 2 in the back. And I used a 70-pound Hyperwire right here. The reason for that is that if I were to go with a bigger split ring or a bigger hook, this hook can start getting stuck in here on casts, and that's the last thing I want when a giant fish is coming after this. The first 10 minutes of fishing this bait, I was out on a real stormy day, and I spotted a pod of like 3 fish over 6 pounds. One of them was probably 8. So I just started, fan casting around the area. One of them bit, and it was the weirdest bite. It bit just like a boop, almost like kind of like a Huddleston bite. But it was so light, and I was coming over grass, I just didn't think it was a fish. I didn't set the hook at all. And then I see this big gaping mouth coming out of the water. I'm pretty sure it was the biggest one out of that pod. I caught a 5-something the other day, 2 4s, a couple 3s, and a few more dinks and a catfish on this all in a week. It gets action. I've had a few followers that were really big. Had several fish just nipping at it. You do want a really strong hook on this back hook, because 80% of those fish that I've caught already were all on the back hook. I don't know why. I think they were trying to injure it and then end up getting hooked. The first fry ball of the year I saw this thing, I threw it into that fry ball, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if there's a fish around. And I'm not watching. I'm looking for the mother fish. She was directly underneath the pot of fry. It was probably the male, honestly. It was like a 3 or 4 pounder, but man, that thing crushed this. It did not hesitate. Versus the hard gill, this one swims a little bit more naturally, like the joint movements and everything. It's an A+ bait in my opinion. This is probably one of Matt's masterpieces. I've wanted this exact thing for years. So the durability of this bait is great. The resin that he's using, the clear coats, are holding up really well. Like I said, I've got around a dozen fish on this, and I don't see any paint miss. There's a little tiny chip here. There's some hook rash right there. Or no, that's not hook rash. Teeth marks from the fish that have bit. Yeah, this side's real clean. This is holding up great. I don't know the price point yet for this, but in my opinion, this is worth every penny, and my absolute favorite straight retrieve gill bait made now, period. This is it. I've been fishing it on 25-pound Seaguar and Vizex. I love this line. For a fluorocarbon, it has just a slight bit of shock absorption, so that big fish is taking that last surge towards the boat. You're not just straight ripping the hooks out of their face. Great line, casts great, lasts a long time. I am fishing it on a Dobbins 806 here. This is rated for 2 to 8 ounces, I believe. Yes. It's more of a 2 to 6 ounce range, but this rod throws this thing like a champ. This bait's weight is right in the sweet spot of the Dobbins 806. I went with a round reel, a 5-gear ratio Shimano Cardiff 301A. I put a Shimano 301 handle on it. I like that handle a little bit better. It's a little bit longer and just you get a meatier torque out of it when you're just trying to ski that fish in. I go with 25-pound line because where I'm at, the water's pretty stained. I don't see fish here getting line shy. There's no reason to compromise your bait trying to go with the lightest line you think you can get away with. And why a 5 gear ratio is because this bait is a slow sink. It falls probably just under a foot a second. You can burn this thing, you can really get this thing thumping, or you can slow crawl this thing. And with a 5 gear ratio, I feel like you're really keeping the bait in the strike zone longer. A lot of the time I see guys with a hard gill and they're keeping it in the very top of the surface the whole time, and I really feel like you're not putting your best odds forward if you're doing that. I really like to get the bait down and try and keep it in that zone. Erratic retrieves, for example, with this bait in a 5 gear ratio, if I'm going about like this is about my favorite speed. I'll speed it up, maybe pop it every once in a while, and it kind of gets out a flash like a bluegill's darting around from a bass chasing it. But it's a really simple bait. You can just straight chuck and wind and slow roll this thing and get bit anywhere in the United States. I promise. If you get this thing, you're going to thank me. It's awesome. Enjoy, guys. Stay on, baby mama. Stay on. Come on, girl. Don't put them on that. Come on. Oh, that's a big one. Oh, man. This thing is my day. Missed 2 big ones earlier. Caught a dink. Came to a spot where I knew some bluegill beds were, threw it to the deep end of the bluegill bed. I think the first cast where I saw those bluegill beds. I'm going to scale her here in a second, but she's at least 8. She's lengthy though. Eight 5. Oh man, this is awesome! Whew. Got to another bluegill bed. That one's not nearly as big. 6'3". That one put up a pretty good fight. A little 6-pounder. Thank you, mama.